The 1970s was a decade of economic heartbreak and structural chaos for Great Britain. Industrial strikes, constant blackouts, and the three-day workweek completely shattered the quality control of the nation's automotive industry. Desperate to counter foreign competition, manufacturers rushed vehicles into showrooms that were half-baked, poorly engineered, and structurally fragile. For thousands of hard-working British motorists who proudly spent their life savings on a brand-new domestic machine, the reality was a bitter betrayal. These cars turned out to be financial traps, leaving driveways filled with deep, immediate buyer's remorse. Today on UKTorque, we are counting down 10 legends of regret. British cars of the 1970s that left owners feeling completely swindled. Stay with us until our number one spot, because it belongs to a handsome executive cruiser that dissolved so quickly in the winter rain, it literally disappeared before its owner's eyes. Number 10. Austin 3-liter, the boardroom illusion. We begin our countdown with a car designed to sit at the absolute pinnacle of British Leyland's executive lineup, the Austin 3-liter. Launched at the dawn of the decade, this massive rear-wheel drive saloon was marketed toward top-tier corporate executives, wealthy business managers, and politicians who wanted to project an image of ultimate success and luxury. It featured a long wheelbase and an incredibly complex self-leveling rear suspension system designed to deliver a smooth, floating ride. But the moment a wealthy buyer took delivery and parked it outside their high-class suburban home, a cold sense of regret set in. To save production costs, British Leyland used the central body cabin and door skins from the much cheaper, smaller Austin 1800. This meant that despite paying an absolute premium for an exclusive flagship, the car looked like a bloated, stretched-out version of a common family runabout. The premium prestige was ruined instantly. Worse still, that highly complex rear suspension proved to be incredibly fragile and prone to sudden hydraulic pressure losses. Under ordinary passenger loads, the suspension would completely collapse without warning, dropping the rear end of the expensive car directly onto the tarmac. Fixing it required specialized engineering tools that ordinary garages didn't possess, leaving expensive executives stuck at home, looking out at a dead garage monument that they had bitterly regretted buying. Number 9. Morris Marina Coupe, the dangerous sports mirage. In 1971, British Leyland introduced the Morris Marina Coupe, a sleek two-door version of their new family car aimed squarely at young, aspiring motorists who wanted a dash of sporty style without a premium price tag. With its fastback roofline and trendy styling, it looked like the perfect, modern British sports coupe for the new decade, filling young drivers with immense pride as they signed the finance paperwork. But beneath that fashionable, youthful exterior lay a mechanical crime. To rush the Marina into production, engineers recycled heavily outdated components from the 1940s and 50s, including the primitive lever-arm front suspension from the old Morris Minor. The resulting handling was not just bad, it was actively dangerous. The early Marina coupes suffered from a severe design flaw that caused massive, uncontrollable understeer. If a young driver tried to navigate a sharp corner or a roundabout on a typical wet British evening, the front wheels would lose traction entirely, refusing to turn and plowing the car straight ahead into the nearest hedge or oncoming lane. Word of this terrifying handling trait spread like wildfire, causing the resale value of the Marina Coupe to crash violently almost overnight. Owners were left stranded with a car that was terrifying to drive in the rain and completely impossible to sell, turning their sporty dream into a bitter lesson in buyer's remorse. Number 8. Vauxhall Victor, the vibrating disappointment. The Vauxhall Victor, launched in 1974, was meant to be Britain's aerodynamic, racing-inspired weapon to conquer the performance market. It featured a dramatic, sloping fiberglass nose cone, quad headlamps covered in sleek glass, and a powerful 2.3-liter engine that looked like it belonged on a racetrack. It was an aggressive, exciting machine designed to turn heads on every high street and make its owner feel like a racing driver. However, the timing of its launch could not have been worse. Arriving in the middle of the global fuel crisis, Vauxhall rushed the Firenze through the assembly line with shocking manufacturing tolerances. The sleek fiberglass nose cone was rarely aligned properly with the steel body panels, leading to massive wind whistles at speed. Worse still, the large 2.3-liter engine suffered from a complete lack of refinement. At motorway speeds, the engine generated a harsh, violent harmonic vibration that traveled directly through the steering column and into the cabin. The cheap, brittle plastic dashboard would rattle and shake so aggressively that owners felt like the car was actively tearing itself apart. Because the car sold in microscopic numbers due to high fuel costs, replacement body parts were non-existent. A simple minor bump meant the car would be off the road for months, leaving frustrated owners staring at an expensive, vibrating disappointment that they desperately wished they had never bought. Number 7. Chrysler Sunbeam, the rusty Scottish rainwater pool. By 1976, the Linwood factory in Scotland was facing complete financial ruin, threatening thousands of jobs. To save the plant, the British government stepped in with a massive financial bailout to fund the rapid development of a new compact hatchback. The result was the 1977 Chrysler Sunbeam, a practical little car developed in a record-breaking 19 months by cutting every conceivable corner and recycling the mechanical platform of the older Hillman Avenger. Because the development was so frantically rushed to meet political deadlines, the Sunbeam arrived in showrooms with almost zero engineering refinement. The body panels were stamped out with such poor tolerances that when owners drove them at motorway speeds, the doors and wings would visibly flex and rattle against the wind. But the ultimate betrayal happened whenever the typical British weather turned wet. The sealing around the large rear glass hatchback was completely defective from the factory. Rainwater would bypass the rubber seals entirely, pouring straight into the cabin and collecting deeply in the spare wheel well. Owners would walk out on a Monday morning to find their rear carpets soaked, their windows permanently fogged up, and their boot transformed into a miniature, rusty swimming pool. It was a car born out of desperation, and owners bitterly regretted buying a rushed stopgap machine that couldn't even keep the British rain outside. Number 6. Triumph Stag, the expensive V8 betrayal. The Triumph Stag is perhaps the most heartbreaking story of automotive regret on this entire list. Launched in 1970, it was an incredibly handsome, sophisticated grand tourer styled by the Italian design master Giovanni Michelotti. Featuring a luxurious four-seater cabin, a distinctive target top with a built-in roll bar, and a bespoke, rumbling 3.0-liter British V8 engine, it looked like the ultimate lifestyle statement for the affluent motorist. But that bespoke 3.0-liter V8 engine turned out to be an absolute mechanical betrayal. Instead of using a reliable, proven V8 design, Triumph rushed their own complex architecture into production with fatal engineering flaws. The aluminum cylinder heads were bolted to a cast-iron block, which expanded at completely different rates when hot, causing the head gaskets to blow constantly. The water pump was mounted too high in the engine bay, meaning that even a minor drop in coolant would cause the engine to immediately overheat, warping the cylinder heads and mixing oil with water. Furthermore, the duplex timing chains were poorly manufactured, stretching and snapping without warning, which instantly destroyed the internal engine components. Driving a Stag in the 1970s was a constant source of anxiety. Owners spent thousands of pounds on endless engine rebuilds, only for the car to overheat again just a few weeks later. It was a beautiful machine that routinely bankrupted its owners in repair bills, turning a dream purchase into an unforgettable nightmare of financial ruin. Number 5. Austin Allegro, the rigid geometric disaster. The Austin Allegro, launched in 1973, was marketed by British Leland as a futuristic family saloon that would showcase advanced engineering and modern styling. It was meant to be the pride of the British suburb, offering a smooth ride through its advanced hydrogous suspension and a highly forward-thinking driving environment. Instead, it delivered immediate, universal regret. The first thing owners encountered was the notorious Quartic steering wheel, a bizarre, awkward rectangular shape that British Leland claimed was more ergonomic. Drivers absolutely loathed it, finding it clumsy to slide through their hands while turning corners. But that was nothing compared to the car's complete lack of structural rigidity. Because of hurried assembly and poor body design, the Allegro's steel shell was dangerously weak. If an unfortunate owner encountered a flat tire and jacked the car up incorrectly by the sill, the entire body would flex and twist under the stress. This structural bending was so severe that the rear glass window would literally pop completely out of its rubber seals and shatter onto the road. Doors would refuse to close properly if the car was parked on an uneven curb. It was a poorly executed, fragile disaster that became a national symbol of industrial incompetence, leaving owners deeply embarrassed to be seen in one. Number 4. Leyland Princess, the sagging wedge of regret. In 1975, British Leyland attempted to shock the executive market by launching the Princess. It was a bold, avant-garde flagship saloon that featured a striking, futuristic wedge-shaped profile and advanced hydrogous suspension. It was designed to project an image of high-status elite luxury on the high street, attracting buyers who wanted something modern and distinct from conservative foreign cruisers. But the Princess was a masterclass in design disappointment. Despite its sweeping fastback shape that practically screamed for a large, practical rear hatchback door, the management inexplicably refused to engineer one, opting instead for a tiny, narrow traditional trunk opening. This made loading large luggage or family shopping an awkward, frustrating battle. Even worse was the execution of its advanced suspension. The hydrogous units were plagued by terrible factory quality control, frequently leaking fluid and losing nitrogen pressure. Owners would walk out to their driveways to find their futuristic luxury flagship sagging miserably to one side like a wounded animal, with its nose pinned to the ground. The steering was heavy, the interior plastics rattled constantly, and the build quality was so notoriously poor that body panels rarely lined up correctly. It promised elite style but delivered mechanical misery, leaving owners bitterly regretting their decision to buy into Leyland's wedge-shaped illusion. Number 3. Hillman Avenger, the dissolving paper saloon. Introduced in 1970, the Hillman Avenger was a conventional, rear-wheel drive family saloon designed by the Roots Group to tackle the dominant Ford Escort. Initially, it was a very pleasant car to own, featuring sharp handling, a lively engine, and a modern exterior layout with distinctive hockey stick-shaped rear lights that looked quite handsome parked in suburban driveways. But the Avenger carried a hidden, terminal flaw that turned ownership into a race against time: the shocking quality of its steel. During the mid-1970s, industrial supply shortages meant that British car manufacturers were sourcing low-grade, untreated thin steel that possessed zero rust protection. The Avenger's body panels were completely unprotected from the elements from the factory. Within just a few short British winters, the salt from the roads and the constant rain would trigger a catastrophic chemical reaction. The metal underneath the paint would bubble, corrode, and literally begin to flake away like wet paper. Owners watched in absolute horror as their front wings, door bottoms, and structural sills dissolved into brown dust within a matter of months. A car that looked modern and sharp in 1972 would become a structurally rotten, unroadworthy pile of scrap by 1975, completely destroying its owner's hard-earned bank account and leaving a legacy of absolute hatred. Number 2. Austin Maxi, the gearbox cable warfare. The Austin Maxi, which carried through the 1970s as British Leyland's practical workhorse, was a car that on paper made complete sense. It was a spacious 5-door hatchback with front-wheel drive and a highly innovative interior where all the passenger seats could fold completely flat to create a makeshift bed. It should have been the ultimate vehicle for family holidays and practical weekend hauling. But British Leyland completely ruined the driving experience with a mechanical setup that turned every journey into a stressful physical battle. Instead of using solid metal rods to connect the gear stick to the transmission, the Maxi utilized a primitive, highly flexible cable linkage system. Shifting gears in a Maxi didn't feel precise. It felt like trying to stir a bucket of thick, sticky glue with a piece of wet string. Finding third or fourth gear was a complete guessing game, and the cables would stretch over time, making it incredibly easy to select the wrong gear entirely. Trying to navigate a busy, fast-moving high street junction or a roundabout turned into a high-stress nightmare as drivers frantically hunted for a gear while traffic honked behind them. This uncooperative, frustrating transmission made the Maxi an exhausting chore to drive, leading owners to bitterly regret choosing practicality over basic mechanical sanity. Number 1. Vauxhall Victor FE, the iceberg of failure. We arrive at our number 1 spot, the ultimate monument to absolute automotive betrayal and buyer's remorse. The Vauxhall Victor FE. Launched in 1972, this large, handsome executive saloon featured gorgeous, sweeping transatlantic styling inspired by General Motors' American cruisers. With its spacious cabin, commanding road presence, and smooth ride, it initially attracted thousands of successful middle-class families and business professionals who wanted to project an image of upscale prosperity. But the Victor FE was built on a foundation of absolute structural negligence. Vauxhall utilized a specific batch of highly impure, recycled steel during this era that had been completely untreated for corrosion protection. The design of the front wings and inner wheel arches lacked proper drainage liners, meaning that mud, water, and winter road salt would become permanently trapped inside the dark cavities of the bodywork. The chemical reaction was devastatingly rapid. The Victor FE would literally rot from the inside out. It was a shocking, common occurrence for a 3-year-old Victor FE, a car that still looked clean on the outside, to fail its mandatory structural safety checks completely because the floorboards, chassis rails, and structural sills had completely dissolved into brittle flakes of rust. Owners who had proudly signed long-term finance agreements were left paying off a car that was legally condemned as a dangerous, structural safety hazard, making the Vauxhall Victor FE the most bitterly regretted, swindling disaster in the entire history of 1970s British motoring. The tragic history of these 10 mechanical disasters serves as a powerful reminder of an era when industrial corner-cutting and chaos completely swindled a generation of loyal motorists. Subscribe to UKTorque for more unvarnished, honest chapters from our rich automotive history, and let us know in the comments below, did your family ever have the misfortune of parking one of these 1970s nightmares in their driveway?